Community public safety and police. People ask me what will I remember most about my time in Saginaw, and I can say unequivocally that it has to do with trying to find a better way to deliver police services to the community of Saginaw, and not just from a financial standpoint, but also from the standpoint of a collaborative and a community-oriented service delivery system. And is Brian here? I'd like for him just to briefly elaborate on where that is. And as Councilman Went mentioned, we did sit in a meeting at the request of the state police, actually, because they value the partnership to share with the councilman what their role is. You know, a lot of people talk about what they are or aren't doing and what is or isn't happening, but until you actually sit down and get the facts about what's going on, you should really withhold judgment or make allegations about, you know, who the bad guys are in these cases. So with that, Brian, if you would just.
Sure. Mayor, Council. As you know, this past year we went from 91 sworn officers or authorized officers down to 55, which was a difference of 36 officers. So about 40% of the department we lost over the course of 1 year, which forced us to do some major reorganization within the police department. Some of the reorganization was a lot of our proactive units or positions that we had within the department were eliminated, such as the Safe Streets team, our assignments, DEA, ATF, the fugitive team, those all disappeared. Unfortunately, part of that too was we had to downsize our community policing unit. But with that, the good news is we've developed that partnership with the Michigan State Police to help us pick up where we kind of lost those positions. They have pretty much taken over those proactive units that we no longer participate or have the bodies to participate in. And they're doing a very good job of that. And they've also assigned Trooper Liz Hunt to the city of Saginaw as a community services officer. And she's really picked up a lot of the slack of where we lost some of our community police officers. So that has been a blessing, and having their help come in when we lost such a large chunk of our department. But beyond that, we are still meeting regularly with those units, the FBI, the ATF, the DEA, to communicate more with them on who our violent offenders are. As a matter of fact, today we had a meeting with the U.S. Attorney's Office, who was also interested in how they can better help us identify and address the violent crime within the community. So we are still working with those units. We may not be participating in them, but we are still working with them, and they're still working with us and working in the city. Part of our reorganization too, and what we're trying to do over the course of, or the direction we're trying to head, is we're trying to work more closely with community groups, such as we have become a member of the LPAC unit, and that stands for Advocates and Leaders for Police and Community Trust. This group meets once a month at various locations. It's actually chaired by Marv Jenkins and co-chaired by Carl Williams. And so the idea behind that group is to meet with members of the community, leaders of the community, and discuss police and community concerns that may affect this region. So that's one thing we've gotten involved in, and we're also, as you know, partners with the Citizens Advisory Council. And that also addresses, but it's more specific to our department rather than police in general or in the region. And that's working with us to address anything such as use of force concerns, as well as police training and diversity issues. And lastly, the enhanced use of technology. As you know, we do have the Raptor Center. We get a lot of questions about the Raptor Center, whether or not it's being utilized. The fact of the matter is it is being utilized. We may not be physically sitting at the Raptor Center, but we can access it from the police department. We do so on a daily basis. And it's not just us accessing the Raptor Center, the cameras, Shot Spotter, but the state police, the drug units are also accessing it with us, utilizing that video to enhance their investigations. As you know, we have the MyPD app. We've gotten involved in Facebook. And we also have purchased CopLogic online police reporting program. It's been a while now. We're still facing some issues trying to get that integrated with ARMS, but we're trying to get through that and get that up and running soon. And that wraps up my presentation.
One of my first objectives in my new assignment is to figure out a way for the Flint Police Department and the Michigan State Police and other police agencies in the Genesee County area to collaborate and work together as a team. I will be taking the very model that Brian just shared with you down to Flint with me, and we'll be implementing that as we seek ways to maximize the collaborations that are available, particularly to communities like Flint and Saginaw. One of the things I'm most proud of about Brian's appointment and his tenure is that he's taken a very difficult situation and he's worked to bring together the remaining men and women of the Saginaw Police Department. And in all of his presentations, and when I've had an opportunity to see him outside of the day-to-day work, he's very enthusiastic and committed to leadership in the department. Brian also joined me in Boston at the City Management Conference as we attended a symposium and talked about that very issue of what we were doing in Saginaw in collaboration with other agencies, given the financial conditions and the downsizing that's taking place in police and fire operations all over this country. And our presentation was well received because a lot of individuals who are facing these same kind of challenges don't have the teams in place to deploy the strategies that we have, and now have what I consider to be a very solid model that I can take to a police department in a city that's twice the size of Saginaw and put that together. So I'm very pleased with that, and very pleased with the work of Chief Lipe and his staff. And as I said, we met with the state police early on, and I watched him present that model to the state police. And so there's a solid collaboration there, and that's what the governor is looking for. That's the only way I think we're going to defeat some of the issues that plague our cities, is through that collaboration and through a collaborative and sensitive effort to reach out and provide services. And that is what this is all about, is the provision of services. Now, on the fire side of things, of course, you know, we got the SAFER grant. We've implemented some new staffing models. We continue to explore collaborative efforts there with neighboring fire departments. We aggressively pursue collections of funds and cost recovery. As you know, we're in the process now of discussing ways in which to enhance that revenue based on our ordinances and what changes might need to be made to put us in a better position to do that. The fire department, as you know, worked very closely with me and my management team as we were looking at the possibility of having to reduce the workforce even lower, but because we received the SAFER grant, we didn't have to lay off those individuals, but that's only a 2-year reprieve. So the next couple of years, it's going to be very important to make sure that we're looking at all of the things, that the city is looking at all the things that it has to look at, so that you can be proactively prepared if there are changes to that financial condition of that SAFER grant. And again, I want to thank the membership of the IAFF. Also, I want to thank the acting chief, Chris Van Loo, for his work and his agreeing to serve as the acting chief in this interim period. But that's another hurdle that'll have to be dealt with in the next few months, because the appointment is for 6 months, and so you have to decide how the fire department is going to look and how it's going to be staffed. Code enforcement. All of you know the neighborhood stabilization program and the tremendous amount of success that we had in putting that together and creating many neighborhood organizations and developing cooperative relationships with the Saginaw County Treasurer and the Land Bank, which have become central players now in our efforts to eliminate blight and to reposition our housing stock in a way that it can be served best by removing blight and occupancy levels at the financial base that people can afford to purchase these homes. And as you know, Dr. Thorns was a major force in pulling that all together. It's very good to have someone who can carry that good news about where Saginaw is, and he certainly filled that role in that program. And our program continues to be a model for the rest of the state about how that money was utilized. And so when there are other funds that are available, we get an opportunity to stand in line and show our track record, and we get consideration for additional funding. Again, that's because of the leadership of Dr. Thorns, but also the hard work of a lot of people in that department. But I've always told my employees it's a lot easier to carry good news to the people than it is to carry bad news. And the idea of the good news is supposed to be counterbalancing to the bad. It doesn't always work that way, but it's always best to get that good news out so that people know in the community that there are things going on, the community is moving forward, and there are efforts being made to make it a better quality of life for everyone. Code enforcement, you know the work of John Stemple and the Scenic Group and the things that they've done over the years. That was something that took place as a result of an examination of the better way to pull all of that together and to demo the homes that are dangerous, dangerous buildings as soon as possible, and expanded some environmental improvement programs and the demolition program. There's been just a tremendous amount of activity in that area. And what we've done is we've reorganized that, as you know, and made it the Department of Neighborhood Inspections and Neighborhood Services, and made Mr. Stemple the leader of that department as the city's chief inspector. I'm going to hurry through the rest of this. As you know, when I brought Ms. Buck on staff as the executive assistant, she worked very hard with Jeff and with others to put together a public information and media relations operation, because that was one thing that was sorely missing. The call center, the one thing that people told us, well, it was a waste of time and they tried it before and it didn't work then, so it won't work now, is one of our most important assets now, because it centers all of our calls and puts in place an automated system for addressing the issues that our residents have the most concerns about. It's a better way of doing it than having one department's office tied up all day taking complaints about everything from vicious dogs to some other things. And again, while I mentioned that, I didn't mention it when I had the neighborhood stuff up for John, but we've implemented some very broad sweeping ordinances to help improve the quality of life in the vicious dog ordinance. And now with the ordinance regarding the foreclosures, all of those will have to be enforced by that department. But back to the public information and media relations, I think we're probably better now in terms of our ability to be transparent and to work closer with the community to make sure that people understand what it is we're doing and the reasoning behind the decisions that we make. Law and legal affairs, through the interactive involvement of this committee with the city's contracted attorneys, all legal matters have been vetted and decisions made based upon efficiencies, economies of scale, and successful outcomes of previous matters. In the past, this was all handled by one individual. By restructuring our legal services, not only do we have a better system in place for addressing all of those issues, but we've saved approximately $200,000 in the process by doing that. And that was, again, all of these teams meet regularly. Community and economic development. Of course, you know about the Central Michigan University College of Medicine, the Bancroft Eddy development, downtown area development construction, the Catholic Federal Credit Union, the work of the Shaheen family and what they've done to develop that Washington Avenue corridor. We've also updated the city's master plan and modified the city's zoning map, and again, continue to administer the NSP grant funds. These are all very critical issues to the ongoing planning and implementation of strategies that are going to improve quality of life. That Bancroft and Eddy development, when that is complete, I will be back here for the grand opening, because I can already see the kind of energy that those buildings tend to generate in terms of being an anchor for future development in the downtown. And it's because of a lot of hard work on the part of a lot of people. Joanne Query and the Saginaw Future staff have been a de facto staff of the city, as you know. A lot of those issues are in their purview to carry out for us, and they've done an excellent job of doing that. Public Works and Utilities, the implementation of curbside recycling, which began in 2012. We looked at the department efficiencies and operations and implemented changes. Energy efficiencies. Phil has been before you many nights to talk about our efforts in the energy, renewable energy and energy conservation programs, and we look for some payment back on that. You've also approved major capital improvements, bonds for capital improvements at our wastewater treatment plants and some other issues that over the aging infrastructure of the city have to be addressed. And because of the good management of both Director Carwatt and Director Mason, we've been able to stay ahead of those things. Even though they are rate driven, we still have been able to make the right decisions about how to make our water supply and our waste treatment facilities the most efficient and effective in the state. So again, just to wrap up, that's where we are. This list is not all inclusive. As I said, I will be getting to you before your next meeting a more detailed list of the projects and some of the other things that we've done, because I think it's important for you to have that information as you look back at your time on the council and some of the things that have been done. And of course, as I said, with the impending change in the makeup of the council, to have a starting point from which to move forward and to strategize the future of the city of Saginaw. Just a couple other points I want to make. I've served over the past 8 years as one of the City of Saginaw's appointments to the MBS International Airport Commission. And as chairman of the commission, I oversaw the commission's and the administration's leadership during the construction of a new $48 million terminal, all as a representative of the leadership in Saginaw. And that's important because the terminal had to be replaced, and the efforts of Director Nagel and his staff to pull all that together and to keep the commission apprised of how that complex project was coming together was quite an exercise. And so Saginaw's interest was well received, and the input was well recorded in the construction of that new terminal. And if you haven't flown out of there yet, I think you'll find that it is state-of-the-art and certainly rivals any other terminals that you may be able to choose when you have a choice in air traffic. The Saginaw Midland Municipal Water Supply Corporation also served 8 years as a trustee on their board of directors, and as chairman of the board, participated in crucial negotiations between the city of Bay City and Bay County for their connection to the corporation's water supply as a wholesale customer. And this will result in the DEQ and other regulatory compliances for safe and potable water, which is, again, one of the things that the state has said, that as local jurisdictions, you have to begin to find ways to collaborate and work together to provide services at a lower cost than an individual jurisdiction shouldering those issues on its own. And those were some very deep and delicate negotiations, because as you know, when the water system was started back in the 40s, I believe it was, Bay City and Bay County were approached as being partners in that and opted not to because they couldn't all decide on what it would look like and whose best interest it would be in to do that. But fast forward to 2013, and they just broke ground this last week on the new plant, which will be operated by an authority consisting of the municipalities in Bay County and the city of Bay. And so those are all very major operations, not only for the city, but for the region. I think that's all very important because as an owner of the system, our water prices decrease based on the amount of usage that we can sell for water to wholesale water customers directly from the pipeline. Now that brings me to my last point, and that is, I understand that it was requested of me at the meeting in October, or the meeting in September, for my opinion on the interim city manager appointment. What you have in front of you is a graph of city manager tenure. To the far left of that graph, you'll see Manager Reed Phillips, who served from 1998 to 2002. Mr. Phillips retired in 2002, and from that point, you had a succession of 5 interim and not so successful city manager appointments for whatever reason. And then you have the tenure of the current city manager from 2006 until October 11th of this year. The attached graph is designed to show the turnover of city managers since May of 2002. From the period of retirement of Manager Phillips in May of 2002 to June of 2006, or just slightly over 4 years, when I was appointed city manager, there were 5 interim or unsuccessful appointments, which amounted to an average tenure over that period of about 0.8 of a year, or less than 1 year tenure before the change in leadership. During that period, issues like labor relations and negotiations, problems in the finance department, organizational dysfunction, and other issues languished because at the top there was the uncertainty in the leadership. In a similar vein, we recruited and established leadership in employee services departments following over 5 years of a lack of direction in matters of labor relations, negotiations, and benefits monitoring. What I'm saying there is that there was not the level of direction necessary between that point in '02 to the point in '06 when I was appointed, that the city had the kind of leadership that a city like Saginaw so desperately needs. So what does that tell you? I think it brings us full circle in that, again, the most important task you have as a council is to recruit, select, and appoint the most qualified city manager you can to take that graph over there on the far right and begin a tenure with more success than the 5 that you have over on the left. Now, this is not an endorsement or a rejection of any candidates. It's just putting it right squarely in front of the council, is that that's your obligation. Interim city managers are good, but they're just that. They're interim. What the city needs is to not allow the the unclarity or the same issues that may have happened before because there wasn't that most definite kind of position taken to find a city manager, with the exception of Ms. Kimball, until I was recruited and applied and was selected as city manager. Now, that does not preclude anybody who wants to be the city manager from being the city manager. Just apply. Send out your resumes. Get your references together. Have people take a look at you. It's a process. And that's the most important process you'll do, because I'll submit to you, you cannot afford another 4 years like the 4 years between Manager Phillips and myself. And it may not be this council that does it, but I think that you have to set in motion the process. Normal recruitment time is about 6 months. I have a list here of recruitment firms from the International City County Management Association. I told Mr. Jordan that I was going to give that to him. And he's got about 35 names of professional recruitment firms that he can send out a request for proposals and establish a process that you can go to work on tomorrow. Whoever is selected is not the issue. Meanwhile, you've seen the teams, you know how well the teams have worked together. I think it's important and imperative to keep that team in place in the interim. If Mr. Morales wants to be the city manager, let him apply. If anybody else out there wants to be the city manager, let him apply. That's the way it works. So that's my recommendation based on whoever asked for my opinion on that when I wasn't here in September or October, whenever it was. And it's the same opinion that I have regarding everything that I've done, and that is do it the right way. Oh, you'll take heat for it, and there'll be people that won't like you for what you did, but at the end of the day, I can stand tall and say I did what I did because it was the right thing to do, irrespective of what people thought or how they would have handled it. It's my responsibility on my watch to make sure that the city of Saginaw, the city of Flint, Buena Vista Charter Township back in 1986, all under my leadership moved forward. And we were able to accomplish some things as a group and as a team. And it's important that that could be continued, not for any one candidate or the benefit of any one candidate, but for the benefit of the 51,000 people in the city of Saginaw who hold you accountable and me accountable for the work that we do on behalf of their quality of life. And I just want to leave you with this thought. I've kind of come to believe that, and I've used it in several times. As you know, I had the privilege of representing Saginaw again as the president of the International City and County Management Association. And every place I went, they asked, what do you do in Saginaw? And they heard all these bad things about Saginaw, and how are you surviving in Saginaw? Well, fast forward again, 9 years later, and I'm still in Saginaw. And we've done some things in Saginaw, and we've done those things because I believe that it takes a team to manage a city. Every team must have a leader. Whether everybody likes him or her or not is not the point, but they must have a leader, someone willing to lead in the difficult times as well as in the good times. Someone who is willing to go out in the community and talk about why we have to lay off police officers when up to that point they've never been laid off, as opposed to going out and telling them we got $20 million, where do you want us to spend it? Those messages, while they send contrasting thoughts, are both important. But the bad news is as integral to the operations as the good news. Every leader must have a vision that inures to the benefit of the broader public, the redevelopment and the implementation of the plan to carry out that vision. And that's a motto that I leave with you, that I leave with the community, and I wish you nothing but the very best in your efforts to identify a leader and to keep moving Saginaw forward. Thank you.